heroes and there's legends. Heroes get remembered, but legends never die.
Oh, that's the mantra you hope Joe Schoen is working on right now. This is Tennis York Giants Straight Talk, powered by Online Big Blue LLC. Want to talk about the draft, as always, since it's coming up in short 2 weeks, barely even 2 weeks. And the question of all questions, of course, is going to be, will the New York Giants facilitate themselves into a position to take a quarterback? Because it's only the most important position in sports. We've talked about that ad nauseum. We talked about that a million times. It's a position that if you don't have one, you envy the teams that do. If you don't have a good one, you envy those teams even more. If you have a below average one, you envy anyone who has an average one because you know you're not going to go forward in the playoffs if you don't have some kind of exemplary play at the quarterback position. So as we look at this draft, people are saying this is one of the best quarterback-laden drafts in years. And it's funny, though, because when we talked to the stream yesterday, Don was like, these classes come around every 20 years. And I was like, well, you think about this for a second. The last big quarterback draft in my mind, of course, was going to be 2004, where you had Eli, Phillip Rivers, and Big Ben. People also forget about J.P. Lossman and Matt Schaub. And then before that, you had the stellar 83 class, which, of course, you had Elway and Marino and Kelly and what's his name? Ken O'Brien and Todd Blackledge. And I can't remember who else off the top of my head. But you had the big class back then as well. So now roll the clock forward 20 years, and we're rolling into this type of draft again. Now, the problem is this, and the problem what I see is there is a quarterback cliff. And there's a cliff that if I think that the top, I'm going to say 4 or 5 quarterbacks are really the stars in this draft in reference for the quarterback position. But the problem is, I think when you hit after that, there is a steep drop off in talent. And for the Giants, you're not going to get a selection of Jaden Daniels. You're not going to get a selection of Caleb Williams. You may have a potential to get Penix, May, or McCarthy. But then after that, after those top 5, and I'm barely putting McCarthy in the top 5, I think there's a steep drop-off. Now there's that talk and that consideration that Shane should grab that wide receiver and then get that quarterback later in the draft. Well, the problem is I just don't see what's later in the draft. And if you take the top 2 out of contention, which would be, of course, Williams and Daniels, you got to take a look at what you have. You have Michael Penix, all-world talent. I think he's the most pro-ready outside of Caleb Williams. He's statuesque. He stuns in the pocket. He knows how to facilitate and matriculate the ball down the field. He has the arm. He has the strength. He has the seasoning in college, going back to Indiana. He also has the 2 injuries in the knee, the same knee, 2 ACL tears. But of course, that was now going to be 3 years removed. He took a big hit in that championship game where we saw his knee get bent back, and he continued to play. So, and I've said this before, people are like, well, you can't take Penix at 6. But then some people are like, well, you could take him at 11. Well, what's the difference between 5 spots? And a draft that also I think is deeper positionally at wide receiver, you got to take a shot at that quarterback. And then you take a look at Drake May. I think he's more, the more and more I watch Drake May, the more and more you see things you like about him. I think he's a lot more Josh Allen than he'll ever be Daniel Jones. I'm not saying he's going to be on the same level as Josh Allen. I think that would be crazy. But I think he's got that more of that athletic ability and more of the Josh Allen-esque features that you want in your quarterback. He's got the big arm. He's got speed. He's got strength. He's very athletic. He was accurate 2 years ago. Dropped off a little bit in 2023. We've talked about that a million times before. We're not going to continue to talk about that and bring that up again. But he's a guy that if you took at 6, I still wouldn't have a problem with. And then when you get into the quarterback cliff, you get into J.J. McCarthy. And I think this is where you kind of drop off a little bit. J.J. McCarthy is the great unknown. 659 passes his last 2 years. He has had a tendency to be a part of a team, not the champion of the team. I'm not saying he's a systems player, but he's a guy that fits well in the Harbaugh system or fit well into the Harbaugh system. Athletically, is he as gifted as May or Penix? No, not even close. Does he have that winning attitude that seems to rally players around him? I think he does. I think he's shown that at Michigan. I think he's shown the ability to rally the troops. We all talk about the misses by Penix in the championship game, but nobody wants to talk about the fact that McCarthy didn't complete a third or fourth down pass until almost the end of the third quarter, and he was not the reason why Michigan won that game. So I think right when you take a look at after May, you go to McCarthy, you're seeing the cliff. Now the question is, are you going to continuously drive to the cliff and drive over it? I've said it before. I would probably take McCarthy if I had the opportunity. If push came to shove and all four quarterbacks went before McCarthy, I'd probably consider taking McCarthy because you have to. It's hard to run a team without a quarterback. We had an interesting conversation on Sunday, the stream. If you didn't see it, go watch it. We had James Williams, Coach Dave, and Dominic Palmer on. And Coach Dave brought up an interesting point. And it's a point that a lot of people don't want to talk about.
Think you gonna get away with it? Not up in here! Not up in here!
But I think it was a valid point. I thought it was a valid conversation. And he brought up the point that let's swap Penix and J.J. McCarthy. And I don't mean swap their talents. I mean, let's swap their skin color. Let's say Michael Penix was white and J.J. McCarthy was black. Would they still be at the same level in this draft? And I thought it was interesting because it was kind of a general consensus with the group that if Michael Penix had the same season that he had at Washington and lost the championship game and he was white, more than likely we'd be talking about him going second overall, or even maybe talking about replacement for Caleb Williams. And that if J.J. McCarthy was black, we would have to hear how he doesn't have enough experience. He only threw 659 passes, even though he won the championship game. It wasn't on his heels. And we would have to hear how, he might have the athletic ability, but we're not sure about how, mentally he can handle the game. And I thought that was a really interesting conversation because I thought Coach Dave was right when he put it in that perspective. And the reason I bring that up is it's one of those things where someone even was talking about it on ESPN and a couple other places that, J.J. McCarthy isn't as good as people are thinking or maybe not thinking because of the fact that he can't even push himself into the consideration of the top four and that he's been dropping further and further off this quarterback cliff. Because as I think more and more people get closer to consideration of drafting him, I think there's going to be more and more questions about his ability. But I did think it was kind of interesting, that whole conversation, that if they switched races, where would the conversation be with these two guys? Because all you hear about is, well, Penix can't do this and Penix can't do that, but Penix put up huge numbers. He really has. He's played beyond a level. All people can focus on is the injuries and some inconsistencies every once in a while, or how he has too much offensive talent around him. I just thought that was interesting. So as we reach J.J. McCarthy, the cliff just drops off. Where you have the likes of Leary and Joe Milton, Spencer Rattler, and Hartman, the cliff just kind of bottoms out. And I get weary and wary, and also I forgot about Bo Nix. I had to put Bo Nix on here. And there's concern to me that there was talk and speculation the Giants may trade up into the second round to get like a Bo Nix. I can't do one-read Bo. Bo showed what he was at Auburn. He didn't push through as much as Oregon. Oregon got smart last year. They made him a one-read quarterback. They made him a one-option quarterback at times. Is he athletic? Does he have the ability? 100%. But everyone talk about the same thing, that he's extremely slow in processing plays. And like I said, everyone has warts after you fall out from Penix, May, Williams, and Daniels. And like I said, there is a deep drop from that cliff. Talk about Shane not reaching for a quarterback at 6. But isn't trading back into the second round for the likes of a Bo Nix or a J.J. McCarthy just as much as a reach? and you're going to be giving up assets and wasting that second round pick when you could get your quarterback at 6 and still get a quality wide receiver in the second round, even with the later pick since we swapped the pick with Seattle. No, we didn't swap. I would say I should rephrase it. When we made the Burns trade, we gave up our pick and not Seattle's. There is like I said, we just have to make sure that Shane is smart enough to understand that, to me, you're not really reaching at 6 if you're going to take like a May or a Penix or maybe even a McCarthy if you want to go that way. But I worry the fact that the talent level is going to be such a drop-off after those top 5 guys that you are literally going to be trading up for someone, giving up assets when we only have 6 picks in this draft with the hopes of potentially finding a quarterback to replace Daniel Jones. Got a lot of big shows coming up. I'm trying to get over this cold, so I'll make sure you stay tuned for that. And as always, don't forget to like, don't forget to subscribe, don't forget to ring that bell because you want to know why, and that'll be awesome.